So, what does it really take to create a family in today's world? For millions of people, the answer is found right where hope and some pretty incredible science meet. We're going to dive deep into the new frontiers of fertility, where technology is opening up paths to parenthood that honestly we never thought possible. Our story kicks off right here in Marrakesh, Morocco. And listen, this is not just any conference. This is the 22nd World Congress on IVF. We're talking a global summit where the absolute brightest minds, the leading scientists, doctors, and embryologists are all gathered in one place to map out the future of fertility. And they all came together under this one really powerful theme: no borders in art. And by art, we mean assisted reproductive technology. And that phrase, it just stuck with me. It got me thinking, what does a world with no borders in the science of creating families actually look like? So first, let's just take a second to appreciate the sheer scale of this collaboration. This is knowledge being shared across continents, all to solve one of the most fundamental human desires. It's pretty amazing. For 3 straight days, these experts were sharing the absolute latest breakthroughs. And this isn't just theory, This is where cutting-edge research starts its journey out of the lab and into the clinics that help people everywhere. Okay, so let's get into the good stuff. What were they actually talking about? Let's take a look at some of the most exciting advancements that are really pushing the boundaries of what's possible in fertility treatment.
The agenda was just packed with absolute game changers. We're talking about things like artificial intelligence, advanced genetic testing, even stem cell technology. Let's just zoom in on a couple of these to see how they're completely revolutionizing the whole process.
So how is AI being used here? Well, imagine a super-powered assistant for the scientist in the lab. The AI can analyze thousands of data points from a developing embryo, stuff that's way beyond what the human eye could ever see, to help pick the one with the absolute best chance of success. That's AI in action. And then you have something like PRP. This is a really fascinating approach. Essentially, it's using the natural healing power that's already in a patient's own blood. They concentrate these platelets and reintroduce them to potentially rejuvenate the ovaries or make the uterus more receptive. For some really tough cases, this is a whole new frontier of hope. Okay, so we've seen the big, world-changing ideas up on the stage in Marrakesh. But how does this incredible science actually get put into practice? Let's zoom way in, from that global congress right down to a local clinic, to see how all this research becomes a reality. So we land in Casablanca, at centers like Labomac and IREFE. This is where it all happens. This is where the international knowledge from conferences like the World Congress gets translated into real-world treatments that help people, right in their own communities, build their families. Now, the journey itself is incredibly complex, but it follows a pretty clear path. It all starts with stimulating the ovaries to produce eggs, then retrieving them. After that comes the really critical stage in the lab, where fertilization happens. And then, finally, the transfer of one carefully selected embryo back to the uterus.
And just look at the precision here. This is a technique called ICSI. An embryologist is using a microscopic needle to pick up a single sperm and inject it directly into an egg. It's just an unbelievable fusion of human skill and high-tech tools.
But behind all the technology and the acronyms and the science, there's a deeply, deeply human story. So let's get to the why. The real reason for all this, the people at the very heart of this journey.
These are the words of Sarah and Ahmed, who were patients at the IRIFE Center. And their words, they just capture the emotional weight of this whole journey, don't they? The years of trying, that whole cycle of hope and disappointment that so many couples go through.
It's interesting, at the conference, the clinical term is repeated pregnancy loss, or RPL. But for a couple like Sarah and Ahmed, that cold clinical term translates to this. Each month was a disappointment. We were starting to lose hope. This is the human side of the equation. This is the pain that all this science is trying to answer.
And you know what? It often does answer it. This is from Nadia and Hassan, another couple. After their own struggle, the science worked. They say the center offered them a glimmer of hope, and that hope led to a successful pregnancy with twins. For Nadia and Hassan, that glimmer of hope became this number: 2. 2 children, Samir and Lila. All the research, all the technology, all that global collaboration we talked about, it all comes down to this: 2 lives, a family's dream made real.
And it's a great reminder that this journey needs more than just science. It needs compassion. It needs care. As another patient, Fatima, puts it, the welcome and the feeling of being supported, well, that's just as important as all the advanced technology.
So, where does this all lead? We've traveled from a global meeting of minds to the microscopic work inside a lab, and finally, to the creation of a new family. What's the next frontier? We've seen how these huge ideas discussed in Marrakesh become the joyful, everyday reality for a family in Casablanca. This whole idea of borderless science, it isn't just connecting researchers anymore, it's fundamentally redrawing the map of human possibility.
Which brings us right back to that powerful theme, no borders. As science keeps removing the biological borders to building a family, it leaves us with one last crucial question to think about. What new frontiers, the ethical ones, the social ones, the personal ones, do we now have to navigate together?